Well, it's been a while since the last time I touched this LP. Well, at least it feels like a long time. I think it's only been, what, 5 days since the last part, but it really felt a lot longer than that because of that stupid cold. And yeah, I didn't do any videos on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because of it. Yeah, I really couldn't get anything done because my nose was so stuffed. It would have been hard for you to understand anything. And I'll say it. How bad was it? I'll be honest. At one point, I thought my nose would fall off of my face. You know, kind of like Michael Jackson. And yes, I'm doing Michael Jackson jokes still. I don't care if you want to crucify me for it or not, and I got a timely critical there. This actually gives me an idea for a topic I should cover eventually. But right now I got more important things to talk about because, graphical distortion here. I guess it's only a one-off thing because usually it doesn't do that. Remember when I was on Route 210 and I was walking through the tall grass and it looked like all weird and stuff? Well, in the part after that one, everything was suddenly resolved, so I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. But yeah, there are very important things that happened over the last few days for anyone who plays competitively, namely that there was a vote on what I already described as a really stupid measure. That is, banning the use of both Drizzle and Swift Swim on the same team. And, much to my surprise, the rules actually passed by a supermajority vote. Why? I don't see the appeal. I mean, sure, there's a problem with rain. There's no denying that. But was this really the best way we could solve the problem? In my opinion, this creates more problems than it solves. Just banning Drizzle would have been fine. It would have solved the problem without opening a Pandora's box. But no, they decided to actually support that rule. I don't know if it's because one of the Smogon moderators openly supported that rule and even suggested that it should be voted on. But I think his arguments in favor of the rule, well, they're a little weak, to be honest. There's, of course, the major issue of, starting a whole slippery slope thing. He says, no, we're not going to start a slippery slope. We know better than that. But, really, how do you know that? Can you read the future or something? Because, as far as I know, once that rule has been put into effect, there's nothing preventing us from adding more rules just like that. For example, why not prevent us from using Excadrill on the same team as a Sand Streamer? That would be pretty much the same thing, actually. And we're already looking at a second vote on Excadrill, so actually, it's not only is it a pretty good example, but it's actually one that has a real possibility of happening. So, yeah, if we get more rules like that, and at one point it becomes, something we've all come to accept, what's to stop us from becoming even more specific? For example, you could say that only Sandrush Excadrill could be not used on the same team as a Sand Streamer. And then you'd say that only Sandrush Excadrill with either Earthquake or Drill Run wouldn't be usable with a Sand Streamer. Oh, of course I'm exaggerating and making stuff up, but this is just to illustrate my point. We can't read the future. We don't know what it's made of. We don't know what the future metagames will look like. So to just make that gratuitous claim that it's going to be alright, it's not going to get any worse than that, I am not entirely sold on that. And there's also the issue of the rulebook becoming a little too complicated. And, of course, it's not going to be a problem for top-level players, but just because the rulebook is tailored with the top players in mind doesn't mean they should leave the rest of us chumps in the dust. Imagine someone who's trying to get into Pokemon, into competitive competitive Pokemon, and then he sees that rule that prevents a player from using Drizzle and Swift Swim on the same team. His first reaction, understandably, is going to be, why is that? And then you get into a long-winded explanation of why it's not allowed. And just to give you an idea, the other day I had a discussion with someone on the comment section of, I think it was part 56, and I tried to convince him, because he hadn't played the Generation 5 competitive yet. I tried to convince him that there was a problem with Drizzle, and I failed to convince him that there was a problem with Drizzle, even though anyone who's played the game will tell you Drizzle, left alone, is uber broken. And before that combo ban was voted on, we already had a fairly extensive ban list. We had banned Pokemon, banned moves, banned items, and even nowadays banned abilities. Now I have no problem with banned abilities per se, because inconsistent sucks. And well, I don't mean it sucks in the sense that it's bad. It sucks because, well, I've already talked about inconsistent more than enough. You should have an idea what I mean by that. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that we already had loads of restrictions and other rules like sleeve clause to follow, and if the rulebook gets more and more complicated, it's going to become sort of a turn-off for anyone who's trying to get into the game, even for, well, I'm not considering myself an expert player by any stretch of the imagination, but I consider myself at the very least educated, and even I really don't like how the rulebook is becoming. It shouldn't be the size of a freaking novel! In fact, you know what? Let's have a debate about it right here, right now. Yes, I know it's on YouTube of all places, but I still think it's worth having a debate about that subject. Where do you think we should stop in terms of the rules getting more and more complicated? Have we already crossed the line? Are we close to it? Could we get even more specific without it being a problem? Personally, I think that combo ban just crossed the line, especially since it could pave the way for even more combo bans, such as the Excadrill example that I gave earlier. Now I understand that one of the core principles behind this is to ban as little stuff as possible. But if we're doing that, then what's to stop us from allowing Pokemon that are normally Uber right now with some restrictions? For example, you could allow, I'm trying to make a valid example here, you could allow, nothing really comes to mind, but you know what I mean, just to prevent them from using moves or items, stuff like that, and that's basically what we're trying to avoid so badly here. And that also would fall in the category of trying to ban as little stuff as possible. Oh hey, a wild Sudowoodo. I find it a bit weird that, you know, I find a wild Sudowoodo that's not on the field like it was in Gold, Silver, Crystal, or even in Emerald. I never get used to that because, for me, Sudowoodo is sort of etched into my mind as a Pokemon you only find as a roadblock, not in the tall grass like that. But I guess, even though I prefer the newer games, the fact that I've been playing these games for so long rears its ugly head every once in a while. But back to what I was saying, banning as little stuff as possible, I will say this, it's a good idea for the principle of the thing, but you don't have to create more problems than it solves. And I think that's exactly what we just did here. And what I find especially weird about this rule being adopted is that, from what I've been told, the Soldew ban was originally meant only for Latias and Latios. Anything else could use it, even though it wouldn't have any effect at all. But still, according to what I've heard, it was eventually expanded to all Pokemon because of the possibility of using a trick chain to eventually get that Soldew on a Latias or a Latios. But I'm going to admit one thing right now. If you have the balls to even attempt a trick chain to get that Soldew to a Latios or a Latios, and you have the skill to actually succeed on top of that, well, you, my good man, have earned the right to pull that sweep off. But, obviously, I think, ultimately, it may not have been the intended effect, but the fact that Soldew is now banned on everything is that it cleans up the rulebook by a lot, makes it a lot simpler, at not much of a cost, because, let's face it, those trick chains are hard as hell to pull off. As Togetic just gained another level, yeah, I put Togetic back in the lead a few minutes ago while I was talking, because it was, you know, a bit falling behind in terms of levels, and I don't want to not use it at all before it evolves, just for the sake of, you know, getting to use Togekiss a little longer, because I don't like to play catch-up with my Pokemon to begin with, even though I have no choice when I catch a new team member. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. Food for thought. What happens when a player with Drizzle on their team plays against a player with Swift Swim on their teams? Suddenly, the whole purpose of the rule is entirely gone. Now, of course, that is a lot less reliable than just using both on the same team, because you're relying on your opponent having a Politoed, and I have no idea how common Politoed is going to be after that rule is put into effect, to be honest. Oh, huzzah! Take down Recoil Self-KO! Congratulations! But yeah, just to link to what I was saying earlier, that possibility of both abilities being found on opposing teams is sort of like the equivalent of that trick chain I was talking about with the Soldew. So, if they actually bothered to change the rule to ban Soldew on everything, then why not just ban Drizzle completely? I don't know. I'm not the one who makes the rules. Now, I am really praying that this rule will somehow disappear at some point in the future, and I see two ways for it to happen. One, Drizzle still proves to be broken even without Swift Swim, which, for the time being, I really doubt, because Swift Swim sweepers were the worst part of having permanent rain around. Because now if you try to use the same kind of team, well, your Pokemon are going to be slower, and as a result, they're going to take more hits. So they're going to be easier to kill, thus making them less broken. And now I've reached the Pal Park, and we're getting Pal Park ready. I wonder what you can do in there. You're working on it and you don't even know? Come on, you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do in there because you're working on it. It's like those villainous teams. They never know what their boss is after, but they just, you know, go along with it because it's for the good of everyone. But this guy, he's working on the freaking Pal Park. No relation at all. And just in case you didn't know, the Pal Park is for transferring Generation 3 Pokemon into Generation 4 games. That's basically all there is to it, though there is a mini-game involved, which I will explain at a later time when I can actually enter the building. And the second thing I was talking about that might cause that rule to be dropped is if, eventually, they get to vote on another similar rule, such as the Excadrill example from earlier, and then they realize that, you know, maybe we fucked up last time. Maybe the rule book shouldn't be this freaking complicated, especially if we're going to have multiple of that kind of rules. But regardless, this video is almost over. I have less than a minute left, so I'm just going to leave you with some more food for thought. With this combo ban, there is now a restriction on how to use Love Disc. Yeah, I was shocked too when I realized that. This really sounds stupid. You can't use Love Disc on the same team as something else. Wow. Anyway, in the next video we're going to complete Route 221, which really isn't that far away because there's only that one house left to check out. And after that, we're going to start heading to Canalave City through Route 218. See you then.